morning everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I say good morning because it is morning here. It is Monday and it is, what time is it? 8:50 in the morning, and it's January 13th. So hello to everybody and welcome to my channel. I hope you're well and having a beautiful day, morning, night, evening, at whatever time you're watching this video. So today I have an idea to make a quilt, of course. But I'm thinking I'm going to be making a scrap quilt. So I'm going to go through my scrap bin here. And I'll show you the loads of scraps I have. And so remembered when I organized my room about 2 weeks ago and I put all of my strips into my bin. This is the reason why it's so important to get all of your things nice and organized, because it's so much more easier when you need to pull to make a quilt. So because I have all of my strips in this bin here, what I intend to do, let's angle the camera so you can see a little bit. What I intend to do is I would like to get most of my 2.5 inch strips. Now ideally you can use smaller strips, all right, but that is not what I'm going for, I think, all right. But in my head, I want to use 2.5 inch strips and I want to do 5 strips per block. So I'm going to go through and look for strips that I can use. Now my color concept here is to try and reuse a lot of the strips as much as possible. I don't necessarily want to have too much of a variety. So something like this, obviously I will trim off the selvage, okay? If I can keep the selvage in, I will. I'm not going to stress about it. I don't necessarily want white in, but if the selvage isn't there and it gives me my 2.5 inch, then fine, okay? So something like this I would use. I also have this here. Now, for example, this may be 2.5 inches in certain areas and then smaller in some. So, but what I will do is find the length that I want within that 2.5 and trim it off and just put the excess back into my bin. So anything such as binding, and I always keep my extra binding, as you can tell it's folded because I use binding on it. So that will definitely go into the quilt. I'm however trying not to use any oh, that's a nice yellow, look at that. That will do. I can definitely get 2.5 out of that. Even if it's 1, that's fine, just tore it. So I'm going to keep looking. That's a blue and white, however it is not cotton. This is that texture of blankety texture, so I don't want to put that in there. I'm going to leave that out. That is beautiful. I'm definitely going to make use of this one. I can probably get 2 out of that. That is 2.5. Now I'm not necessarily going to measure them. I can tell visually that is 2.5. I mean, after making so many quilts for a while, you tend to know what's what, isn't it? This is beautiful as well. Again, excellent. That will do just fine. Oh, seems like it's going to be a blue day because I just keep reaching for them. And again, main reason for keeping all of these strips together, that is 2.5, but it's too short. Okay, so that's what it is so important, guys, to really organize and get everything in one. That way it's so much easier. Now this is a beautiful color, but it's too slim. It's probably about 1.5 inches, and I don't want to do that. As I said, I could, but I shan't. No, too small. What I also have, okay, is this is good as well. May not be the color that I want, but I'll certainly put it on the table as, let's have a look at this one. It may not be the length that I want. I may be able to get the length out of this. This is a nice one. So you get the idea. What I also have is a bundle here, and this is not a bundle I have bought. This is a bundle I have put together myself. So if I have excess backing from my quilts that I've cut, or trimmed I should say, I will then go ahead excuse me, and cut them into 2.5 or 3, mainly 2.5, okay, and put them all together. So it is already prepared as a bundle of 2.5-inch strips. They may not necessarily be very long, like 45. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're more, because remember they are 2.5 inches from the backing of the quilt. So I'm going to go through this and see what I can get after going through the bin here. All right, and then we will take it from there. So I'll put them all on the table, and then we're going to cut them together, and then you'll see what my intentions are for making the block. I think it's going to be a good one for what I am thinking of doing with it. So let's get started. And also, I'm going to be stopping in between because I have to make a cake for Carl. I've been promising him to bake him a cake long before Christmas. So today I'm going to get it done and yeah, get it over and done with. Because over the weekend he said to me, is there anything sweet to eat? I'm feeling for something sweet. My husband always have a sweet tooth. There were snacks, but there wasn't anything too sweet enough for him. So I thought he was giving me a gentle reminder about baking the cake. So I'm going to get it done today. So I'm going to be baking as well as making a quilt. Double dutching today. All right, let's get started. Once you're happy with all of the strips that you have selected, the best thing to do is to lay them all out onto the mat, line them up, separate them so that it's easier to make sure that none is overlapping, and then cut them into the desired length. At this point, I am not sure how much I am actually cutting, but I am just going to cut until I have enough. All the details would be in the pattern, so then you would know exactly how many strips you need to make the quilt. Okay, so here I have all of my necessary strips cut. To be honest, I don't know how much is here. Nevertheless, I'm just going to start stitching them together now. These are the leftovers. I've got some pieces there that I need to add back into the box now. Nevertheless, this is where we're at. So get all of your bits done and let's get started on sewing. Next, begin by sewing. What I have done is to put them in different piles. It doesn't really matter. The only concern here is not to add the same strips next to each other. All right. So if another strip that is similar, like for example, these two that come up here that's together, I wouldn't choose them. I would choose another one. That's the main thing really, is just to sew them together, not that they're side by side. Alright, update. This is the layout. It's not sewn together, it's just placed. I'll tell you what I am concerned about at this point is having similar blocks next to each other in reference to some of the strips. So for this one here, it's repeated quite a lot, and I am not too partial to it being so close. As you can see in this vicinity here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with it. So what I want to do is spread it around. I mean, that is one of the concerns with reusing the strips. Again, like here, I don't want this to be opposite each other. Then it looks, then it looks like a straight line. So which is one of the things we want to sort of not have. Again, I've just moved this, but I've encountered the same problem over here. So you could possibly just turn it around, but I'm still not partial to having it opposite each other like so. But for now, I'll just keep moving until I am happy with it. This is, at the moment, it's quite rectangular here because I've laid it out sort of horizontal. Obviously, once I've quilted it, it most likely will be the size, once I've sewn it together, it'll probably be the size of the table top here. But I intend to go a few more blocks to enlarge it a little bit. But as for borders, I'm not sure at this point. I am liking it just as it is. There is another step that I do want to take, but for now, what I want to ensure is to literally move the blocks around just so that I could see where I want things to be and make sure that it is not too repeated. I mean, to be honest, some of it I may not be able to help because of the blocks. For example, again, going back to this one, it's so repeated that I do feel that anywhere I put it, I will encounter the issue of having it being next to each other. So that is, it's not a problem. I mean, you don't have to worry about it, but I personally don't necessarily like that effect. So I'm going to put this one down here. I'm going to move this across, put it on this side. Even the blue strip is also repeated quite a lot. I still got this 1, 2, 3, so I'm thinking of moving this one here and possibly, see, that's where it becomes difficult. So I have 1, 2, 3 of it there. 1, 2. I'll move this one over and I'll leave it here, but it's still sort of close. Swap these around. I mean, that's the best I can do for now, to be honest. I think it's kind of dabbled about. I could bring this one here, move this one up. But then I have this here, these two, that's similar. I'm going to spin it around. I could move. Yeah, that seems about right. It looks balanced. I just want it to look balanced at the moment. That's the only thing I'm sort of concerned about. Sometimes if you turn it the other way up, you may kind of put the strip further away, even though it's on the same block, if that makes sense. So I think it looks a little bit balanced now. I still have, no, look up there. See, I've got to make sure. If I jimmy that around, I'll move this there, turn it this way, and this one there, I'll move this one up. It's making a jigsaw, and I think I'll leave it there. That's probably the best I can do with that. I still got a little bit of blue in the area there. Let's try this one at the end. And if I turn it this way, move this one along, put this there. I've still got two blue next to each other. If I jimmy the blue down to this end, and okay, that looks about right. Yeah, I think I got it. All right, so I'm going to add a few more blocks to this area here, and then I'm going to move on to the next stage. As I said, there's something else I'm going to do to it, which I'll share with you a little bit later. But for now, this is the update. Next step now is to cut a strip of the background fabric and then cut them into squares. Ensure that your blocks are all pressed and ready to go. What we're going to do next is to snowball in the corner here of all of the blocks. always surprise me what scraps can do with a little bit of imagination. All I did was sew them into some strips and I added some snowball at the corners. Absolutely gorgeous. This didn't take long. In fact, I made this in a few hours. It's really a day quilt. If you wanted to make it bigger, by all means, you can go right ahead and use as many scraps as possible. But it looks absolutely awesome. The colors are absolutely beautiful. Scraps never cease to amaze me. It's a wonderful way to use up your scraps strips fabric and get something so brilliantly beautiful. This quilt is suited as a lap quilt, a wall hanging, to use on your table, whatever variety of ways that you'd like to use it, entirely down to you. But it turns out really, really beautiful. For the quilting, I did wavy lines. And I thought it was absolutely perfect for this particular quilt. I didn't see the point in doing any meandering or curls or anything like that. Straight line quilting would also be a very suitable option for this quilt as well. And I did this based on the fact that it was strips that I used. The quilting didn't take long at all. In fact, it was completed very shortly. It didn't take long because of the fact that I use wavy lines on the quilting. And as you can see, it's not very close together. It's probably about 1/4 inch apart, depending on where you look. So, but 1/4 inch there and a little bit wider. Hence the reason I think this moved so very quickly in making the quilt. I also used a white embroidery polyester thread on this, and hopefully you can make it out because usually it's a little bit more glossy than the cotton, but this came together very quickly. This is really a quilt in a day. It is only strips and it is definitely a quilt in a day. Some people will think, well, I'm lying. I am not. Ideally, most of my strips was already cut into 2.5 inches, isn't it? As I showed you at the beginning. All I really needed to do was to then cut it into the length that I needed. This is very beautiful and I think it will make an excellent bed quilt and use up a lot of your scraps. Beautiful quilt, and the snowball with the white looks awesome, absolutely awesome. I think any other color would have been a little bit too strong, but I think the white played off. Remember at the start, I said I didn't want to use white in the strips. And this was the reason, because I knew in my head the white as a snowball would look much more better based on all of the colors of the strips. At the back, it's a print I have used before in a bed quilt and I absolutely love it. I absolutely love this particular print at the back here. It's the same fabric I use for the binding. But overall, this is a very simple quilt, yet it looks outstanding and it will be a conversational starter. You know, simple, but yet elegant and beautiful, just so colorful and vibrant. Now, this is a way that you use up your scraps. Absolutely gorgeous. I'm not sure how many pieces of strips is in here, but I think it's fairly amount. And as I said, this is something that can use up all of your strips that you have. I like to sort of, you know, cut down on my strips. I don't want to use everything just in one quilt, which will be good, but I like to use them for something else. Hence the reason why I didn't go any bigger. All right, guys. So if this video has brought you any value, please consider subscribing and liking and sharing, and definitely leave me a comment down below. It helps the channel out so much more than you would know. And it's a great way to communicate with me and to let me know your feedback on the quilt. And please, if I ask you a question in the feedback below, I am not trying to offend you. I'm literally just wondering where your thought process is. Remember, when you're typing, sometimes you may think I am upset. I am never upset, to be honest. So if I ask you a question, well, why didn't you like it? I just want to hear your feedback. And remember, I don't really have friends here in Australia. So if I'm talking to you, it's just because I'm communicating with you and reaching out and extending myself. That's all. So bye for now. Happy quilting. And I'll definitely see you in the next one.